Hey, I just literally got through watching the Manny Pacquiao versus Timothy Bradley fight. Um, my initial reaction, as I'm sure is the reaction of many people, is just absolute shock. I cannot believe that anybody gave that fight to Timothy Bradley. When the results were being read and the first result was read 115, 113, I thought, wow, someone had it that close. And then when they said Manny's name, I thought, wow, that could only mean that they were about to read Bradley's name next. It's going to be a split decision. We were actually about to change the channel before the decision was even read. That's how one-sided the fight was. We were sure that Manny had won, but then we thought we'd keep it on to hear if he says anything about the Floyd Mayweather fight. I'm not a Manny Pacquiao fan at all. I couldn't wait for Mayweather to fight him and outbox him and beat him by quite an easy decision. However, he did not lose that fight. I mean, I kind of did want Timothy Bradley to win just so all this hoopla with the Mayweather fight could be over, because I'm sure when Mayweather came out of prison, Bob Arum would have made another excuse for the fight not to have happened. I don't know, he said the arena wasn't big enough before. He would have said there's not enough toilets in the arena and people gotta pee, and I'm sure Mayweather would have possibly come up with more excuses. He wants Manny Pacquiao's whole family to have random blood tests. All that rubbish and all that hoopla. I wanted Bradley to win, but I wanted him to win convincingly. And this, I mean, he didn't win this fight. There is no way he won this fight. He was outlanded by approximately, I can't remember the exact amount, but he was outlanded by approximately 100 punches. And he still managed to win the fight. Bob Arum claims to have gone over to Bradley's corner before the results were read, and he says that Bradley said to him that, I tried my best, but I just couldn't beat the guy. Um, I did make a joke about it afterwards to one of my friends that Arum, it benefits Arum if Pacquiao loses, because if Pacquiao wins, then he goes and fights Mayweather. He can make so much money, but if Pacquiao loses and then he has the rematch clause and he fights Bradley again, because Arum has contracts with both fighters, he can make the money from promoting both fighters. And we kind of laughed about it before the fight, but it seems that amazingly enough, Arum has, since the fight finished just shortly ago, he said, I'm going to make a lot of money on the rematch, but this was outrageous. So he's mentioned how he's going to make a lot of money on the rematch. Um, I'm still bewildered and shocked. I mean, I could see how you could give that first round to Bradley. It was a very close round. I personally thought Bradley won it. I had the fight scored 117, 110. I thought that I thought that Bradley could have. I mean, if you really love Bradley, you could have said he won the last 3 rounds in the first round. Um, Bradley did hurt his knee. I'm sure they'll put a spin on it and say even though the fight, a lot of people didn't think the fight was close, Bradley hurt his knee. That's why Bradley hurt his knee very early in the fight. It was either in the second or fourth round where Bradley hurt his knee, um, and and then from there on in, after the first round, there just seemed to be around 8 or 9 rounds where it just wasn't even close. There just wasn't any way you could have scored the rounds to Bradley because Pacquiao was outlanding him 2-1. Or something along those lines for those remaining rounds, which is why I'm still kind of baffled as to how they could have scored that fight for Timothy Bradley. And I remember towards the 8th or 9th round, Bradley went back to his corner, and he looked like a beaten man. His head was down. He was looking at the ground. His corner were like trying to really hype him up. They were saying, "Come on, you can do this," and they were trying to really get him hyped up for it. And I remember at one stage, I think it was around the end of round 9, where Bradley's cornerman actually said to him something along the lines of, um, you know, do you want this? Do you still believe this? Something along those lines. And Bradley didn't respond. He didn't respond for about 5, 6 seconds. He just stared at the ground, and then they asked him again, and he said, "Yeah, I can do this." You know, and the way Timothy talked before the fight, and the way he's been in all of his other fights, you'd never imagine that his will would be broken, where he has to think about it, where he has to think if he really wants this or not. And the funny thing is, when Bradley kind of looked like he was accepting that he's not going to win the fight and just tried to stop, imposing his will on Pacquiao and just tried to stay away from him and, almost going to survival mode, just stay away from him and throw enough punches to keep Pacquiao off him, that's when he started to counterpunch Pacquiao in rounds 10, 11, and 12. And, when Pacquiao would attack, he'd just back off and throw a couple of counter shots. And I think those were his best rounds. In the rematch, I think Bradley cannot go toe to toe like he did in so many rounds and chase Pacquiao like that. His best bet is to try and counter Pacquiao, just like Marquez done, just like I personally think Floyd Mayweather would do. Um, I think, as I said, Bradley's corner deserve a lot of credit. Their fighter looked like he was ready to give up or had accepted the decision, and they kept trying to G him up and they kept trying to keep him, keep him giving his all. Um, I'm I'm still shocked. That's all I can really say with the end result. It's an absolutely disgusting result. Um, the Mayweather fight now seems further away than ever. Uh, as I said, if Bradley would have won convincingly, I would have been happy with that because it would have meant all the hoopla with the Mayweather fight would be over. But that's not gonna. That didn't happen. Bradley didn't win the fight, let alone win it convincingly. So now there's gonna be a rematch in November. They're saying depends on what's happened with Timothy Bradley's knee. He hurt his knee pretty bad. So if it needs surgery or not, we have to wait and see. And then when his knee heals, he can start training again. And there's probably going to be a rematch at the end of the year, which means if the Mayweather fight's going to happen, it's at least a year away again. Personally, I don't think the Mayweather fight is going to ever happen. I didn't really think it ever would. But I think tonight wasn't a good night for boxing. Full stop. It wasn't a great fight. Let's be honest. But to have a decision like that, I mean, nobody really wins when you have a decision like that, especially when there's been so many bad decisions recently. To then go ahead and score that fight, where you outland the other boxer by 100 punches. I'm just bewildered. It wasn't a great fight, and now we're gonna have to wait another 6 months for a rematch and see what happens from there. But yeah, those are my initial reactions to the fight. I'd love to see what you guys thought about it and how you guys scored the fight.